Oh,
Can I have everybody's attention, please? Now, a few different things. If we can all settle down, focus, please. Just two general housekeeping announcements before we get started on the lesson. The first one is that tomorrow is the math state test, and you guys are going to the library. And you will take your quiz in the library tomorrow, quiz number 2, and we will do the lesson in the library as well, okay? Next up, hang on. Next up, St. Baldrick's this week, Thursday night. Any of you guys who can get, I am. They are cutting me down to nothing. So if you can get down there, it's for a very, very worthy cause. Okay, now, listen, you guys are highly distracted. You need to get your head in the game here because you just got rocked on this quiz. If you had all gotten 90s and 100s, you could afford to be goofing around. But this reveals that there are certain things you don't know that you should know a whole lot better. So we need to focus on this. Kristen?
I'm going to be in the library on Wednesday too.
I believe it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. There is no opting out for you guys because you're not opted in. This test is, you're exempt from this test. You have nothing to do with it, which is the only reason why we can do work. And you will appreciate that we're doing work very much because otherwise we would get to the end of the year and you would be saying to yourselves, man, if I just had 3 more days of review. But if we didn't get a chance to teach class during these upcoming 3 days, then at the end of the year, we would have to take 3 days away from review to cover the material. So now that we do get to cover it now, you will be able to look back and say, you know, I know it's a pain in the butt, but I'm pretty thankful. Yes?
Are you going to be like joining the 3rd period too?
Yes. Yeah, I usually split the 2 classes in half
Okay.
because you can only handle so many at a time. All right, so here's the first question. It says, which equation has the same solution? And there's a couple of different ways to do this. You could put them all in the table or graph them, so to speak, and then look at the table and see which one has the same exact outputs as the question. You know, now having watched kids mastering technology using a calculator for all they're worth, I think that's the way a lot of kids would do this, okay? And that's the advantage of a multiple choice question. Did anybody do it that way? Nobody. Well, that would explain people who got it wrong. All you do is you could literally do y1, because you know how on the graphing there are like 5, 6 graphs you can enter? So enter the first one, x squared minus 6x minus 12. Then, for the next ones, you have to rearrange this a little bit. You have to subtract the 21 and get it all on one side. So you could say y equals x plus 3 squared minus 21, y equals x minus 3 squared minus 21, y equals x plus 3 squared minus 3, y equals x minus 3 squared minus 3. And then you can hit table and look for, the first table is the one that you know you want to get it the same as. And then one of those 4 choices will have the same exact table. Whichever one has the same exact table has to have the same exact solutions. So that's one way to do it. But I would prefer you not do it that way. But that's an important way to know in case you're taking your regents and you're stuck. What I would hope you would do is look at the 4 choices and recognize that this is a completing the square format. God bless you. So the question then becomes, how do I convert this to completing the square? And that's the work that I showed. I add the 12 to both sides, and I get x squared minus 6x equals 12. What are the 3 words you always remember with half? Oh, idiot me. With complete the square? Half and square. So I half the negative 6 to get negative 3, and then squaring is 9, so I put a plus 9 on both sides, and I get x minus 3 squared equals 12 plus 9 is 21, and that is choice number 2. Okay? All right, any questions? I didn't think that was so bad. Now we get to number 2. Most people were cranking along just fine on this until they got to about here.
Yeah, I don't even know.
Maybe even here.
I don't even know how to simplify radicals.
I don't know.
Well, if you don't know how to simplify radicals, we've done a lot of work with it, and you need to come into extra help because I'm not going to go crazy right now trying to teach that. Right now we're focusing more on standard deviation. But very quickly, I ask myself, what's the biggest perfect square that divides into 84?
21.
The answer is, no, 21 is not a perfect square, but 4 is.
4.
So I rewrite it as square root of 4, square root of 21. The first one's the perfect house, second one's the reject house. The square root of 4 is 2. I can't do anything with the square root of 21. And then I just divide 2 into both parts, and that leaves me with 4 plus or minus radical 21. I think only 2 or 3 people in the whole class got that right. I don't know how much of that is chalked up to difficulty with radicals. I don't know how much of it is chalked up to the day after missing 4 straight days of school for the school trip. I don't know what the issue is. I do know that, whatever it was, 6 or 8 weeks ago when we were covering this, not that the whole class would get it right, but a lot more of you, a whole lot more of you would have gotten it right. So obviously this is something, remember the purpose of the quizzes, they're to reveal to us what it is we don't know. Clearly, we need help on this. So you need to work this the next couple of days to get to the point where you're really good at it. All right, and as far as number 33 goes, I think the biggest problem with number 33 is not understanding what the question's asking you to do. God bless. It says write an equation. Write an equation, which means it has to have an equal sign in it somewhere. It has to have 2 things equal to each other. That's what equations do. Some people just wrote something like x squared plus 10x plus 16, and that is a wonderful expression. However, it is not an equation. So most people knew to do the algebra here, which they did, and if you simplify it all out, you get x squared plus 10x plus 16. But you have to make sure it says m of x equals, because the directions say write an equation that defines m of x. So m of x is, I'm defining it, I'm saying what it is, x squared plus 10x plus 16. That's what you get when you do the algebra and then combine like terms, okay? Then it says, and this is really, really important, because kids mess this up all the time, and it's not a hard distinction once it's brought to light. Solve for x when m of x is 0, not solve when x is 0. If I say solve when x is 0, I plug in a 0 for x. It doesn't say x is 0. What does it say?
M of x.
M of x is 0. So you have to put the 0 here, because it's m of x equals. So since m of x is 0, the 0 goes here, brought down, and then I just have to factor and solve. Okay? So I think the big difficulty with the last one was understanding what to do. I think you have the skills to get it right every time. I think you need to ask yourself honestly, how good are you at number 2? And if you're not that strong at it, you really need to work until you can get this right. Somewhere on your regions will be a quadratic formula question. Somewhere. Don't know where, don't know how. Pretty good chance you're going to have to simplify it too. The radicals. And I think the problem with number 1 for a lot of kids is they didn't recognize what to do. But once they do recognize what to do, it's not difficult. I think they also didn't realize how the calculator can help them out. Okay? Any questions on these 3? All right. So now let's get to the next part of today's lesson. What is today's sheet? Number 9, I think?
Yeah.
All right, so we're still working standard deviation, all right? And in the course of still working standard deviation, we're trying to figure all these things out. We talked about a calculator. Let's remind each other that we know how to get these answers out of our calculator. Did all of you put this data into your calculator?
Yeah.
Excellent. When you did you get matching, means, and standard deviation?
Yeah.
Yes, very good. Okay, so we're all good on how to find standard deviation with the calculator, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. So since we know how to do that, let's take a look at some work from the homework, okay? I only did part of the homework. I didn't do all of it. Now, what I wanted to focus on was the standard deviation. I did this question quickly. Remember, the big thing to remember here is to square something means to multiply it by itself, which means you need to do 2n plus 1 times 2n plus 1, so you need to double distribute, okay? Then they give you this set of data, and they ask you for the standard deviation. Now, if you plug them in and you do stat calc, one variable stats, you look for s of x, because that's the standard deviation we use. We get 0.816 blah, blah, blah. And it says round to nearest hundredth, so I get 0.82. Any questions on that? Okay. This is a question that I hope you're able to answer or understand. What is the meaning of the standard deviation? Do you take a look at these numbers? What do you notice about them?
They're all generally the same way.
Yeah, they're pretty close, aren't they?
Yeah.
Now remember what standard deviation means. Standard deviation means the normal amount that you're different by. Would you say these are different by very much?
No.
No, not at all. So when I come up with a standard deviation of 0.82, that's less than 1. So what that means is the numbers are close together because the normal amount of difference from the mean is 0.82. They tend to be grouped very closely to the mean. All right. This guy. They love to put a question like this on the Regents each year. The first option, you get $2 per box or whatever it is, so it's 2B. C of B is equal to 2B. The cost of a box is 2 times the box. Option 2, this is exponential because you're multiplying by the same thing over and over again. You're doubling. So you start with the initial term, 0.02. Then you take the common ratio. You're doubling it, so the common ratio is 2. And then it's always to the B minus 1 power. So 0.02 times 2 to the B minus 1, which is better if she sells 5 boxes. Option 1 is 2 times 5 is $10. The other one doesn't come close. Then it says, what if she could sell 10 boxes? So I plug in a 10, and the first one makes $20. The second one makes $10.24. $10.24. So you're better off choosing option 1. When you hit option 12 or higher, or I should say 12 or more boxes, option 2 becomes the better option forever. Remember what exponential looks like. Just watch my hand here for a minute. Exponential graphs look very low, then they start to turn, and once they start to turn, they go almost straight up, right? That means that they get very fast, very quickly. But it takes a while to get to that point. In this problem, it takes until you have about 12 boxes sold. Then it starts getting really, really steep, really fast. Questions? All right. So we've gone over context of standard deviation, calculating standard deviation, and so on and so forth. You guys can do these numbers. Go ahead. Okay, did you guys figure out what the mean is?
Yeah.
Hey, stop. What'd you get for the mean, AJ?
68.29.
Did everybody get 68.29? Right? What symbol is the mean when you go to one variable stats?
Line.
X bar. Very good. Okay, and what's the standard deviation? Sarah E?
1.58.
Did everybody get 1.58?
Yeah.
Very good. Okay. So we are clear on how to get standard deviations and so on and so forth. Then it says, suppose the dot plot looks like this. How do you find the standard deviation? How do you enter this data into your calculator? Janelle?
Every time you see a dot on top of the number, that's how many of that number there is.
That's right. So you want to go 0, 0, 1, 1. Then what's next?
2,
2, 2. Then 3, 3. And finally? 4, 4. Go ahead. Make sure you put in the 2 zeros, the 2 1s, the 2 2s. Don't summarize it. Can you guys tell by looking at this dot plot what the mean has to be? Can you tell by looking at the dot plot what the mean has to be?
Whole number.
Specifically, what whole number? 2. The mean is the average. It's the one in the middle. And everything pairs up around that 2, so you know that it has to be. Really? Hello? Okay. All right, bye. Jordan, when the bell rings, you have to go to the nurse. Okay, what does it say for standard deviation? Janelle,
1.50.
did you say
Well, I rounded it up, 1.50.
1.5? Does everybody get 1.5?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. Now, I don't know where any questions went in the questionnaire, so I don't think we can do the next one. I don't think they went there. All right, I'm satisfied that you guys have a pretty good feel for how to do these standard deviations. You guys got about 3 minutes left in the period, and you got to answer some questions on standard deviation and do the standard type of review. You may want to turn around and talk to each other about that quiz and clean that up a little bit and get it better for tomorrow. Know what I mean? All right.